Welcome to this episode of A Facilitator's Journey. This episode is all about the law. It's making our businesses legal. And my guest today is Lucy Wheeler. So Lucy, wow, she's awesome. I'd want to full disclaimer, she is the School of Facilitation lawyer, if we ever need one. She has helped me sort out contracts. She's helped me sort out statements of work, associate agreements, sort out the website. She's brilliant. And she's a vast well of legal knowledge. And so today she agreed to do an interview with us to help all of us understand what we need as we either set up our businesses, or even if you've been in business for a while, some of the basics that we need to be legal. Get a cup of tea, pull up a chair, and join me on the pink seat. Hey, Lucy.
Hello.
Good to see you. Welcome to the School of Facilitation podcast, A Facilitator's Journey. Lucy, the first question I ask all my guests is, how do we know one another?
I feel like we met on social media, which makes it sound really fun, doesn't it?
Yeah, because we are.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think I saw you and then started following you and saw all the things that you were doing, and I think that was how it happened, really.
And I think it's because you were doing conversations with Stephanie of By the Way, the Creative.
Yes, networking. Yeah, I think that might have been it. It might have been something on social that you posted through her and crossover there. Yeah, that might have been foundation.
And then and it'll become very clear very quickly why I then followed you. But Lucy, tell people who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm Lucy Wheeler, but now often known as Lucy Legal. And I won't say an alter ego because that makes it sound way more fun than it is. But I've got a social media account that I share legal information on, which is Lucy Legal. And lots of people follow me now because I run my own business. In fact, I have two businesses now. And share the behind the scenes of how I go through navigating and running two businesses, and also sharing the legal tips too. So it's a bit of a behind the scenes and also educational as well. But when I say education, I don't mean as in really boring. We try and make things as fun as possible. Like we have just been doing a big summer event and just trying to make business fun again. So I think sometimes when we work for ourselves, we put a lot of pressure on a number of different areas of the business. And I just want to try and keep things lighthearted and remind us all that we could just make it a lot more fun.
I love that. And for a lawyer to be saying that as well makes my heart sing even more. So Lucy's two businesses, one is supporting businesses from a legal point of view. Both of them do that, but one is more, from my head, is more like the corporate structure. And then the Lucy Legal, which I think this is just genius, is I don't know, there's more to it than this, Lucy, but you've created a series of like learning and templates and information that the solopreneur, the small business owner, can access at really great price point, and it's easy to understand. You're not on the classic legal clock, right? That's how do lawyers measure their time? Is it 6 minutes? 5 minutes?
Yeah, well, most lawyers do, but we actually don't in the law firm. That was something I wanted to do differently as well, because I just didn't think it worked for business owners who want to understand what the pricing is going to be. And that was something that I felt people got really put off by.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got the legal template shop, which is Lucy Legal, where we sell templates, courses. I've also got membership. And then I've got a law firm, so a fully regulated SRA law firm. And that's where we have, I guess that's the corporate side, or what you'd think of as the corporate side. That's where we give legal advice,
yes,
manage disputes for people. And yeah, I think I set up a template shop, never imagining that the business would explode in the way that it did. But then I felt a bit sad. Like I've worked really hard in my career to get where I had gotten, and then I wasn't allowed to give legal advice, because you can't do that unless you're regulated and in full insured. So people were asking me questions and I knew the answers, but I was like, I wasn't being like, I can't tell you, but I actually couldn't tell them. And I was like, well, I can't give you any advice. And then I began to explore how you set a law firm up. And I was like, this is like impossible. I could never do that. And then I was like, what if I could? And then somehow 3 years ago, I set up my own law firm, which has as much red tape as you would imagine.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to set up your own law firm.
And the reason I really wanted to talk with you today, one, I'd like to say you are the SOF lawyer. You have worked with us and helped us in just some very simple ways, which we'll get into. Two, I just think it's really important that all of us, however big, small, medium size we are, understand what it is we need in our businesses from a legal point of view, because I think it's really easy for many of us. And I did this when I first went to Lucy. It was a little bit embarrassing to tell her I had no contracts with my associates. I had no contracts between me and my clients, that it was all based on trust and it would all be great and wonderful. And I hypothesize that quite a few of us in the training, learning, facilitation business do that. And we either think that putting in a legal something is beyond us, like we're too small, we wouldn't know where to go. So that's what I wanted to talk about with Lucy today. But also she's set up her own business, so she really understands what it's like. Lucy, let's go back to the beginning. How did you end up being a lawyer?
It was one of those things. I was always going to do it. There was never any question of it. My initials are LAW. That's what people said. They were like, you can argue that you will be a great lawyer. And that was always what I was since I was like 5.
Fate. Your parents almost, wow.
I mean, it sounds really stupid. And sometimes I kept thinking, I mean, I actually wanted to dance and I nearly went to dance school. I went for a year actually, but that's probably a story for another time. And but yeah, just always was going to happen. But I never dreamt I would run my own business, and I never thought I'd have my own law firm. And I just thought it was something that other people did. And I thought there was so much you have to learn, because you have to know everything. You have to know legal, you have to know finance, you have to know marketing. And it's absolutely exhausting.
It is. And so you went to uni. Did you do straight law or did you do a conversion?
Yeah.
Wow.
I went to uni, read law, and the only slight, I didn't say sidestep, because I didn't know if I wanted to be a barrister or a solicitor. So I thought I was going to go to the bar, and I actually qualified as a barrister first, and then didn't actually want to do it when I got there. And felt that I worked much better in a team, which obviously I then later left. But yeah, I just thought I loved doing this. So worked up in Newcastle for a while, then moved back down to London. And yeah, didn't ever imagine that I would leave and start my own business at all.
Well, Lucy, just for those of us who are uninitiated with legal terminology, what is the difference between a barrister and a solicitor?
So a barrister is the one that wears the wigs usually, and they stand up in court and they represent you further down the journey. You can't access them if you are, I'm going to say, a lay person is how you describe them in the profession, but anybody so any business owner couldn't just call a barrister and say, can you represent me? You have to have a solicitor. So normally the day-to-day is you would have a solicitor, or you might call them your legal counsel, in-house lawyer, and they will work with you day to day on the case. And then almost the barrister comes in at the final hour if you're going to court and just court.
Brilliant. I've never heard it that way, and that has demystified it for me. When did you start? When did you set up, like, on your own?
I started Lucy Legal in 2019 and just sold templates to friends or friends of friends, and people were asking me questions and saying, how can you do this? Can you help me with this? And so I just had a very small template shop, a few templates, and I was helping people with what they needed online. And then I left my job in the pandemic, which everybody thought was crazy. I think I thought it was a little bit crazy as well. But things just exploded. I think it was one of the areas where obviously lots of people were leaving jobs or setting up businesses, so they needed legal terms, and so they came and got them, and just a series of events just meant I was like, I'm just going to give this a go. If, like, the worst happens and it doesn't work, at least I tried, and it's still going.
So that's now 4 years. And so Lucy Legal came first, and then how do you describe the other business?
The law firm is
Law firm.
Wheelerwood.
Wheelerwood.
Yeah, so that came afterwards, and that's been incredible, actually. They're both very different. They have very different business models, and we don't advertise, we don't do anything through Wheelerwood. Everything comes through network and referrals, which is incredible. We're really lucky.
And to help people understand, like, what's the difference in the business models? Because I think that's useful.
Essentially, I guess Wheelerwood is one-to-one. That's the easiest way to think of it. That's your bespoke advice, one-to-one, everything done for you. It's almost like the VIP service is through the law firm. Everything else is done through Lucy Legal. And part of it was a positioning piece in that we help people in both businesses. We help people with their trademark applications. And we were getting to a point where I was thinking, Lucy Legal is fun. It's memorable. It does exactly what I wanted it to do. I branded it pink because that was very different in my industry, like to appeal to people, to make it a little bit more lighthearted, not the navy or red for corporate. But then when you're sending something out on behalf of a client, I was like, oh, this doesn't quite represent people in the way I'd want it to, because I never intended it to represent people, if that makes sense.
It does, absolutely. So thinking about anyone, like, you've had to do this for yourself as well, like when we set up a business, what do we need to think about from a legal point of view? Because as I said earlier, I genuinely only been thinking about the legal bits probably for the last 3 years working with you.
Yeah, I think you are not in the minority there. I would say the majority of people who come to me are often like yourself, where they've got really successful businesses and they're like, this is incredible, but we've never had any problems, so we've never needed legal. And like, just you get on with people, so you've never had the difficulties where you thought, I need to have a contract because something's going to go wrong. And most people just get to a point in their business, or they just almost have that cloud over them where they're thinking something's going to go wrong. And they know that really everything should be written down. So a really good set of terms and conditions, and you can have them just as a set of your standard terms and just say, these are our terms, this is unilateral, this is what applies. Or you have as a contract where people will sign it and where you agree that the work is going to be delivered in a certain way.
Because I always used to think, oh, but who am I to send a client a contract to sign? And I just didn't do it because I thought School of Facilitation is pretty small in comparison to the big global companies I work with. And so therefore I didn't think I could, if I'm really honest, Lucy. I didn't think I had permission to do that.
Yeah, and that's really interesting, because I think with that kind of thing, I guess you can be like that, and you can just say, look, I'm going to accept what they send or the way that they are. And it's about risk, really. Some elements are about risk. Some things like GDPR, you have to do. Like, there's no choice in that. That's not about risk. That's a legal requirement. Wherever you are in the world, you have to look after people's data. It's not that complicated. It's one of those things. Do it and just manage people's data carefully. But things like terms, you don't necessarily have to have them. There's a lot of people who have gentlemen's agreements. They know how they're going to make things work, or ladies' agreement, and it just people make it work. But the risk then is that if something does go wrong, you haven't got it written down.
Yeah.
If someone drops out of a training last minute, like says, oh, we don't want it on Monday, and it's Friday, and you're like, oh, well, I've already booked my tickets, I've already got the week blocked out, I can't fill any more work in the diary at this point. And if you've not got anything in place, then you're not going to get paid for that week. And then I think that's just the risk. And if you're happy to like take that risk, then that's up to you, isn't it?
I think you've described it in a really good way, and now I'm like, God, I've been lucky up to now, but it is about the risk. Because I think one of the things I was thinking about was, well, like, would they sign my documents? But then what's really interesting is where before I got my statements of work, as I call them, sorted out with your good self, I wasn't asked to sign anything the other way. So even though they were handing go on.
No, I was going to say, maybe that's because that works to their advantage. And that's the thing, isn't it? It depends on the level of client you're working with as to whether you think people are doing that on purpose or not. But for some people, them not having terms, as I said, is amazing, because they could just cancel. They can quo, and they can do whatever they like essentially and not pay you. Like if it doesn't say when you're going to get paid, then when will you get paid? So I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's about it. Maybe they don't send them back because they don't want to involve their legal team if it's a big corporate, or maybe if you're working with a smaller group, maybe they don't have them either, and they're a bit embarrassed because they don't have a lawyer or they don't have budget for legal, and they're hoping that you would send something. Because one of the questions I get asked a lot is whose terms apply. So if you are a trainer and you've got terms and a business also wants to bring you on, whose terms should apply then? Normally, it would be the person providing the services. It would be yours. So it would be on you to send some terms. But if you don't, or if they want things doing a certain way, they're well within their right to say, actually, we're doing it this way around.
I've only had a couple of conversations about our terms when purchasing have been involved, because they actually read the documents. I think most people don't. And whilst that sort of freaked me out a little bit, I also find it very reassuring because they were then just sense checking and asking questions. I think the two areas in my terms that get questioned is like length of time for invoice to be paid, because when you work with some of the bigger corporates, they want to push it to 90 days, not 40 or 30. I wouldn't even bother writing 10 days to be paid unless you know that that's something they can do. I think that's naive. Like, just big corporates don't work like that. And then cancellation terms. That's the only one I've had a conversation about.
And I think they are the big ones for you. And I think what was interesting what you just said then, because I think a lot of people feel that way, that they don't want to be pressed on any of them. They worry that what they've written will then get questioned and they won't even know what they've written. Which is why our legal templates have been so successful, because I'm very much of the view of that you should make things simple and understandable for both sides. And I think this came from like sitting in my in rooms in my career, lots of business meetings, and you could see when people didn't understand what was going on and people were using big words, and I was like, why do that? And it was a one-up thing, and a lot of egos in the room and everybody trying to like make their position known. And I thought that's really silly. Why don't we just tell people what we want to tell them, make it really clear? Because the only people that benefit when something's written in a complicated way are lawyers, because then you trawl over it and you're like, well, it kind of meant this, or it might have meant this. And actually, if you just tell people in a very simple way, this is what it means, then you understand it, so you can explain it to your clients as well, and they can understand it, and everybody wins.
That's really interesting, Lucy, that you said it like that. What so can people buy through a template from you for like a statement of work or a contract? Is that on your system?
Yeah, people can buy templates from the template shop, and if we don't have something that people need, then just ask us. And we've got loads. We support people across all different industries, and I've worked with people. Because I'm not an expert in everything, and I don't pretend to be, but I'll sit and I'll work with people. For example, Facebook ads experts. I worked with some incredible people as we were putting together those terms, working through the risks, the things that went wrong, all of those things, so that we could make it really accessible to people, but actually protected the ads managers.
So thinking about like a classic trainer, facilitator, and you've had enough connection now with for that industry, what are some of the templates that you have that you would recommend they check out for themselves that would be maybe useful? We can talk to
definitely get privacy policy. Those already, and then I would look at our standard terms of business and also our services agreement, so loan service agreement, and then a short form standard terms, because for standard terms sometimes people just want to say this is the way I work, and they can set out exactly the way that they work, and it doesn't have to be bespoke for each scenario. But then you might have an agreement where it was bespoke and you set out timelines and deliverables, and it was done each time, whereas these standard terms is more than what you just have, and you might even just put those on your website so that they're available to people in advance.
That's good. And so we talked a bit about like if we're setting up contracts between businesses, but in this day and age many of us have websites, newsletters, and again I definitely didn't have some of the things we're about to ask you. What do people need to be legit in those spaces?
I mean, It really varies. So this is all information in this podcast, in the sense that everybody's unique circumstance is going to be different. But you're right in the sense that you can have website terms. And some people like to use an earnings disclaimer. Some people write disclaimers about testimonials that they've used. Some people have terms within there about their usage of social media. So website terms can be really helpful, as I said, along with the privacy statement. And things like website terms, not mandatory. Things like privacy policy, mandatory. Okay. It's hard to know, I suppose. Well, this is why I'm speaking, I suppose, about what's important, what is the law. Like, do you have to have one? Things like a trademark, do you have to have one or not? And people think, oh, it's a legal requirement that I have a 10-page contract. It isn't a legal requirement, but there's certain things that you do have to tell people, especially if you work with consumers. Consumers have a lot of protection. There is statute, and that you have to have, for example, a refund policy, but that might not apply to all of your listeners if they mainly work B2B.
But that was a big, because as you and I said, I've got two different business models, and in a way, School of Facilitation has two business models, but under one brand name. So we work with our corporates, and also I'm selling, I call that B2B, business to business, but I also have business to consumer, though some people will say it's B2B, but I'm selling to the individual. So they're like the individual consumer. And you're right, like I hadn't appreciated some of the legalities of doing that, and like what people's rights are. I've got some vague notions, having been in sales and sold alcohol. So it's not the alcohol law, but if you run a promotion, what you can and cannot do for promotional activity, and recommended retail pricing, and you can't discount, can you, without having run a full price for a certain period of time? Is that correct?
Yep, that's exactly correct. There used to be a period of days where you had to have had it been available for purchase for, but now it's just for a reasonable period of time. So what constitutes as reasonable, I guess, will depend in different circumstances, and that's what's really hard. Because sometimes people come to me and say, "Could you just tell me like where this is written down?" I'm like, what do you mean where this is written down? And they say things like sales legislation, and where this is written down, and this is written down, and it's everywhere. That's where lawyers come in, I suppose. It's about, because you were just saying, what do you need to have? You need to have certain documents, but you also need to have that awareness of discrete points like you've just made, that lots of people don't know that. And it's really frustrating to watch people get it wrong, because they just lose their integrity. That you can see people losing respect in what they're doing, because they're launching something or bringing something to the market and then saying, oh, there's a flash sale on this. And people that do know that you can't put a sale on something unless it's been available for purchase before, just look at you and think, well, that's not how you do it. And it's just a shame to see people get it wrong, which makes me realize I need to do more and help people and to make these kind of points more readily available.
And you did that really well. There was, I think, a series of posts on your Instagram that educated me, that was all around that. I think you just did it. It's great as a bit of a poll, like, if I'm launching, can I do this or can I do that? Is this allowed or not allowed? And it's just, it makes you pause, and you just use you didn't ever use one person as an example, but you just took, obviously, probably from just what you've seen on social media, like how people launch and go, this is it. And then you're like, but it's not, is it? You can't.
Then the amount of things I get sent on social media is hilarious. Like I try and stay in my own lane a lot. I think there's lots of social media is great. It's given me the life that I have now. But on the other side, there's like lots to try and keep out of, and lots of people then jump on things like, that person didn't do that right. And remember also, people are often based in different parts of the world, because there's a lot about disclosure and disclosure of opportunities, affiliates, people talking about different things and who they're promoting. And in some places in the world, you don't have to make disclosures. But in the UK, you do. And we often see a lot of big people sharing information about other people, what they're doing. And it's just, you have to remember that too. So it's not just about what's UK law and how does that apply to your business, but is there anything else you need to be aware of internationally that might impact you as well?
And so when you just said about people asking you for, can you show me where it's written down in law that I need to do X, Y, Z? You wouldn't have seen it. I did some hand gestures. I sort of tracked my hands across the screen, and it's because in my head, that's where all those books come into play. And you see, admittedly, I'm going off television and films, and you see lawyers or barristers or their team, I should probably say, going through the paperwork, going through previous cases to go, right, here's an example of when or where it is written into law. And so that's another reason, like, we pay for that expertise and that knowledge. And I think it's really important to honor that, because you didn't pop out of university or pop out of school knowing all this information, Lucy. Like, you've really studied this and learned and spent time getting to this level.
When I was at university, I remember somebody saying, so basically you're a glorified librarian. And I was like, I never really thought of it that way. But then I was like, actually, yes. But the fact is now that I will save you time, as time is the most precious commodity that we have. So yes, you can probably find anything on Google now. Like, that wasn't even a huge thing when I started university. That's showing my age. Like, I didn't even go with a laptop to university. So it is one of those things that, yes, okay, you can probably find the answer yourself, but you don't know all the case legislation. You don't know the ways that things can work, and it would take you a long time. So it would take you a really long time to put things together. Like, people say, oh, well, what about ChatGPT? Like, won't that, like, get rid of the requirement for contract? And I was like, well, no, because there's so much in there that you just, that it's only as good as what you tell it. And if I told it something and asked it to write something, it would, but I know what clauses to tell it needs, whereas most people don't. But it's just in the same way. Like, I don't try and do my accounts by myself, pay an accountant, because they know the rules, they know what the offset, and it just, legal is the same thing. You can do it yourself, but you might miss things, and it will take a lot longer.
I hear you. So if I've got a website, if I'm thinking things through, so I'm just taking a 90-degree turn here. I need a cookies policy, privacy policy. Is there anything else just on a basic level?
You would probably have website terms as well. So those would cover things like how you use social media, it cover off the use of your IP. It might also include disclaimers. So warning people, for example, this is information only. If you find anything about health, or it depends what industry you're in, but disclaimers are more important in some industries.
Okay. And if I'm sending out newsletters, what do we need to remember?
Policy for that before you start. So you might just be starting the business, but you might not even have sent an email yet. If as soon as you start collecting personal information, which is name and email address, and identifiable information, you have to have a privacy statement.
Yeah. And I'd also say, for some of people listening to this who are coaches maybe, or they use a psychometric assessment tool, or they're doing interviews and filming people, I'm guessing they need some sort of, is that GDPR, like that you don't keep the data? So I use Insights Discovery, for example, and I'm pretty sure we have to delete the profiles after a period of time.
Yeah, that all comes into your privacy statement. And that's the thing, in terms of, like, you could say, oh, it's really easy to try a simple one. It might be, but when it's particular to your industry, like you're just saying, like the way that you use things, and people go, oh yeah, no, I do know that's what I do. I do delete things. You have to tell people. That's the legal requirement. You have to tell people how you're handling their data, so that all needs to go into the privacy statement.
That's really useful. So here's a question that's come into my head. As a lawyer, are you allowed to advise yourself, or do you have to get your own lawyer?
Very good question. Well, I guess it would depend on, if I get it wrong, I wouldn't have anyone to sue, would I? That would where it comes down to. If I'm never doing anything that I really need support with, I would get a lawyer if I didn't know what I was doing.
I just wondered. It sort of makes sense. I guess accountants can't do their own accounts because you're not allowed to mark your own homework.
It is. I think it depends, though. Like, it depends what you're doing. And again, it's that risk piece, isn't it? When I was setting up a law firm, I did not know how to do that. So I got support and advice on how to do it. But when I'm doing a trademark, I do those day in, day out. I can apply for a trademark. You don't actually have to be a lawyer in the UK to get a trademark. You can just do it yourself. So I suppose, I did that in my own personal capacity.
But as you say, that's your bread and butter. That's like, you know how to do. That's like someone being asked, it's like running a workshop for their own business, but they design workshops and run workshops, so it's sort of a given. When you set up your businesses, What did you find a challenge? What were some of the things that made you go, oh?
Trying to do everything and learning all of these new skills. I'm very much a strong believer in don't outsource something you don't know how to do. So I was not prepared to invest in anybody until I knew vaguely how it worked, because I feel like there is a risk that you're just going to pour money away. Like, how would you even know if a service is priced well if you don't know what's involved? So I wasn't prepared to get any support until I knew what I was doing. So the first thing I outsourced was design work. I am a lawyer. I can do very much black and white, but I can't make things look good. But I tried for a long time. But then I understood then like how long that was taking me, how long that process was, what I needed, what assets I needed for the business. And I'd done them myself. So there's something to work from. And then someone else can come in and brand and make it simple.
I hear you. That's really interesting, because I always outsource quite quickly on IT. I'm rubbish at that. Like, I'm not even going to try to build a website. That would just make me weep. But I knew what I wanted it to look like. But so that was one thing. Accountancy. I can do the basics, and I did all the basics for a long time, all the invoicing and the expenses and the process. But the actual books, you have to pay for someone to do that anyway in the UK to get that. What's the word I want? Clarified, signed off at the end of the year.
Getting them right. I mean, I probably the same as you. Like, we can do it, but it's that thing, isn't it? How long we could both do it. I'm sure a lot of people listening could do their accounts, and that's what's actually really empowering about being in business, is that when you start doing all these things, you're like, actually, I can do this. I mean, I am with you on IT, and we had a tech issue at the start of this, and I was like, it drives me crazy when things don't work. Like, I get so upset about it. But I think that's the thing, is you surprise yourself when you're like, I can do this. It's a really good feeling. And that's what helps you build momentum, in the sense that you can do hard things. And if we had to do the accounts, we could. Yeah. But it would take such a long time.
So I think there's some classic functions in a business that you would probably quite quickly outsource, like we're just discussing, the legal, the finance, the IT. And I think there's these bits that you've just described, like the design, even some of the parts that you can do, and when you start getting into it, you just recognize it takes too much time. And I would absolutely concur and say I sit in the same space. So for me, one of those is social media now. So I do a lot of my own social media, but I also have a great team who we both know, like, by the way, creative, and Emily Newport helps me as well, because I just don't physically have the time to do all the scheduling and all the creation of the beautiful artwork of the posts. That's not me.
That you've outsourced, that you then thought, no, I am the right person to do this?
Sometimes interacting with suppliers to get decisions made, because I've realized that sometimes the team don't like doing that, and so it's easier to me to have the conversations.
Conversations that think, I do want to say, that like administrative in nature, but they're not the delivery of your service. And sometimes it's difficult, isn't it, when you're having those kind of conversations? It is you, and you will get the best outcome out from them by you having the conversation.
How about you?
I think a lot of our social, I tried to take myself out of that, and it didn't work. As you say, you can get incredible people do it, but I think a lot of the part about legal, or the part about what I do that's very unique, is I have a unique way of saying things and simplifying things, and that got lost when someone else was writing the captions. And I still write all of our email marketing myself, and people are like, how on earth do you do that? And I sit and write things, and we get a lot of people that write back, which I love. If anybody ever gets an email from me and you write back and say, I really like this, I do that now to other people, because I know how much it makes a difference to me and on my day. But we get people, and they like, one lady said to me once that she saved all of the emails in a folder, so that when she was traveling on the train, she could read through them all. And I was like, oh wow, that's such a lovely thing here.
Wow. I agree with you about captions. Sometimes others do write them, but I still go through them and go, but that's not my tone of voice. The only person who's ever got my tone of voice, and I trust on that, is Stephanie. Stephanie White, she's a genius. She is very good. Cool. What else? Oh, I'll tell you what I think is one of the hardest jobs, and I'm always in awe of you, is that you're a mummy of 2 girls. And I am in awe of the fact that you have 2 little ones under the age of 3, 4?
One's 3, one's 1.
Yeah, and you run 2 businesses, and I just want to take my hat off and acknowledge that I think you're doing amazing. I don't know how you do it, but I think it's amazing that you do achieve what you do.
So I don't know how I do either, so I've got no tips on that really. And I'm very much from the sense of, I am probably, if you saw some of the things, it's probably a lot of chaos behind the scenes. But I think one thing that's really good and what's stood me in good stead is I have a very professional background, a very corporate background. I will show up for people, I'll be there, I will do my very best for them. And what I'm seeing now in the online space is this separation of people. So there might be people who have got a bit of a corporate background, but they're marketing themselves a lot online, and they're not where there's a disparity in what they actually deliver and what they say they're going to deliver. And I think you learn a lot from having that, working with corporates and having that professionalism. And I think that that's what's missing from some people's businesses. And I think that's worth remembering when you're writing your terms. Think of them like boundaries. Think of them as, how are you going to interact with other people, and how do you want them to interact with you? Like, include that too. So when you're setting out your terms, it isn't just, cancellation notice. You're actually thinking, okay, how in practice is this going to work? And it works this way, but what about on the flip side? What if you can't attend? Like, make sure you're explaining that to people too. And I think it's about having that level of professionalism, and then being a human and saying, just because something's in a contract, it doesn't necessarily mean that if something goes wrong, like it's a breach of contract and it's all going to fall down, you can contact someone and say, I'm really sorry, I can't fulfill this. And it's that communication piece, or this is going to be done much better in this way. And I think that's what helps you build a really strong reputation.
I think 2 things you said there that really strike me is that I do genuinely believe having some time in a corporate, even if it's an organisation, an NGO, charity, council, whatever it is, don't be afraid to spend first 10 years, like 8 years, get your feet under the table, truly understand what it's like to be in one of those places, because you get so much for being part of a team. You get to see how a business operates and how it works, and like the flow and the structures. You'll see what works, what doesn't work for you. And if you genuinely know you want to set up your own business, I would use that time as almost a training space. See what you can take from that, because they will give you lots of good learning and development if they're a decent business. I think that's one thing, because I feel very lucky that when I came then to set up on my own, Lucy, and I have lots of conversations with clients, my background has helped with that. Like, I don't mind doing a sales conversation. I don't mind doing negotiation, because that's my background. Whereas there are other people who've never had that experience. I think the other thing as well, you've just said about, being able to talk to people and be able to have a conversation. We need to do that through picking up the telephone, team. We can't always do this through text message or email. And I think that's one thing that's not happening lots in some. This could be very unfair, so shoot me down, people. Certain generations are more comfortable with the written word. Other generations are very comfortable, or certain people are comfortable picking up the telephone and having, or even virtually like this, talking.
Yeah. And I think it's about accessibility now as well, and about whichever generation you're in. I don't think we need to schedule calls. That's one of my big bugbears at the moment. That was a COVID thing, and it's a lag that people keep saying, can I schedule a call? If you have someone's number, you can just pick up the phone and call them. And that works so much quicker, and you get so much more out of the conversation as well than back and forth by email. We miss loads in email, and nobody wants more emails. If people can't take your call, they won't take your call. We use a lot of voice notes, but I only like those if you're allowed to speak them up. I don't like them when they're on social and we have to listen to like lots of series of voice notes, but they can be quite helpful. But again, like, you can decide, you can support people, and you have to listen as well to how other people learn best and feel best supported. And like I said, it is these terms that you can say, I'm available to support you in these ways, but you can also ask people before you send the terms and say, how would you like to do this best? If we're putting together a training for you, what's the best way for us to do it? Do you just want us to go away and create it? Or do you want to be involved in the process? Or like, what's your expectation here? And to get that back and forth a little bit, because some people will expect you to just go away and do the job. Other people might want to be part of it. And I think it's important to have that information before you're starting to quote for people, because if others are involved in the planning and the training, that's going to take on a lot more time.
Good point. Well made. People think, oh, it's great we collaborate with a client. Just FYI, it is good. It adds more time. So you need to prepare yourself to add more time into cost into your proposal, because otherwise they think it's just a whole thing on pricing. As we come to the end of our conversation, Lucy, what else that we haven't discussed do people just need to pause and think about from a legal perspective going into their own as a sole trader, a solopreneur, a limited company? Anything that you would just guide them towards?
Another big one is trademarks. You don't have to necessarily have a trademark, but just look at it and see if you need one. And just the reason I say that is because I see the other side where people come to me and they say, I've been sent to cease and desist. Do I have to stop trading because I've had this name for a long time? And I think that's when there's a difficulty. Nobody wants a legal dispute. And I'm not saying you have to get a trademark on day one, but just check the availability of it. Check you're not infringing on someone else. Because if you set your business up and you do all your branding and you do all your things and you think, why it's so exciting, and then you press go and you launch and immediately you get a cease and desist because you've infringed on someone else's rights that are registered.
Wow.
It's that just like... Yeah, we have had people crying on the phone and I feel gutted for them, but there's nothing I can do. And I just think that it's just those kind of things. It's a quick check on the registers. And you can find them just going to the government website. gov.uk for trademarks, it will bring up the right trademark website. You can just check the availability. So even if you're thinking, I don't want to invest in a trademark, they're only £170 to start with. Just that is not as prohibitive as people think, and you can at least check that you're not going to infringe anything else. That's another big one.
Full disclosure, I keep saying to Lucy, I must talk to you about sorting out a trademark for SOF, and I haven't. So maybe that is...
It's fine though, because not everybody has them, but at the same time, what I say to people, so this is the thing, is if you don't have one, what would happen to your business tomorrow if you had to change the name? And if you're like, well, I'll just think of a new name, that's fine, I'll just do something else, and it wouldn't cause too much of an issue. Like, obviously for me, reputationally, it would be a disaster if I didn't have them, because that's my job. But for other people, they go, well, I'll just change the name, like I'll just call my business something else. Therefore, that's fine. And other people are like, no, it's been my dream. I've always wanted to call my business after my neighbour's pony or something, and I always wanted this, and I have to have this name, so they have to have it. So it just depends where you're coming at the business, and it's just when I say, like, if you're starting out and you've got all the socials and you've got the website and all that, that's why you wouldn't want to waste all of that money for the sake of £170.
I think I need to get my arse in gear. Lucy, we end the conversation with a couple of quick fire questions, and I'd love to ask you them. So the first question, what advice, without the legal bit, what advice would you give to someone starting out in their own business?
Have the confidence to do it your way. Start in the way that you need to go on and just create this incredible thing that you love doing. So do business in the way that you makes you happy.
Love. Who do you follow in social media land that you think others should too?
Gosh, on a business perspective, do you know?
Anything, like anyone you just find inspirational that you think, oh, you're I like you.
Yeah, I follow Alice Benham. I think she's very good. She's younger. I think she's very good at what she does. She does a lot more marketing. Who else? Let me come back to that. I might edit something on it.
Fine. Sorry. Alice Benham's a good one.
Every single person I follow.
Do you have a book or a podcast that you like, that at the moment you just go, oh, I just want to recommend that to people?
Oh, well, I suppose this would count with the other one as well. It's Sophie Griffith. She does Facebook ads. She's very good. We've been dabbling in those, and they've been a game changer for the business. And I just binged all of her podcasts recently. She's got a new one, and it's called she did the mini series called The Cure. But if you search her, she's in and all
Okay.
of the.
Brilliant. And final question. How have you invested in yourself or your business to support you to move forward?
I actually have an additional person that works with us, that I've worked with for a very long time, who supports me on the marketing side, but she also acts as a space, I guess, for me to just sound through all of the ideas, because I think, look, our partners will listen to us, our friends will listen to the point that they don't really get it, and this person has just listened to me for 4 years and helps me when I'm going around in circles. And sometimes I think when you've got someone who can just hold that space for you, that's a really good thing, and they can just like let you come to the decisions yourself often. And it kind of helps when it's not someone in your family or a friend, because it's a bit respectful.
I agree. Lucy, how can people find you? Because we've mentioned Lucy Legal, we've mentioned Wheelerwood. So can you give us some direction to how we find you?
Yeah, please come and say hello on social media. I'm at Lucy_legal. That's the best place to find me. If you need any sort of further guidance or any tips, you can go to the website. And if you go to lucylegal.co.uk/checklist, you can download a free checklist, which will help with the legal side of things. A lot of what we've discussed today is on that.
Brilliant. And is that Instagram? Is that Facebook? Which social platforms do we find you on?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm on all of them, but I don't really. I'm mostly on Instagram, but I'm going to go into the world of TikTok. You've heard it here first. I'm going to try and start using TikTok and LinkedIn. I think that's what's exciting as well, is that I've grown my business basically on one platform, and I think that's what I'd recommend anyone to do at the start.
Yeah.
But I know that we've not even touched LinkedIn, and I know that because you do really well on LinkedIn, don't you?
Thank you. It's just about awareness and sort of putting it out there. Also, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, I really want to go and look at Lucy's website, and I need some to have templates. Full disclosure, SOF is an affiliate of Lucy Legal, and I'm going to put in the show notes our discount code, so you can go and enjoy getting some awesome templates and support from Lucy. And if you have maybe something beyond the templates and some more detailed thinking that you need to do, I can totally recommend working with Lucy as well, with her lawyer hat on, because she's helped me many a time. So Lucy, thank you so much for being on here today. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, so thank you. I'm always so impressed by everything that you're doing, and I'm really pleased to be a part of this.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Lucy. Oh, love Lucy. We had a really hard time getting the audio to work before we started, and both of us were getting hot and bothered. So I'm delighted we made that conversation work. And I can't, if you're listening to this back end, reiterate enough the relevance and importance of checking in on the legals that you need in your business, whether that's for your website, for your GDPR, just understanding the basics. It does make a difference. I think Lucy used the language of having boundaries, and having those boundaries in our business is about having some frameworks, and it does give you some security, and it does give you a felt sense of, I have got things sorted, so that should the worst ever happen, and it is really unlikely to happen. It's really rare that we hear that there's problems in this part of the industry. You're backed, and that you can pull down on your contracts or on your T's and C's or on your GDPR process. So I really would recommend go and have a check. Now, go find Lucy's website for sure. Go find her on on Instagram. She's brilliant over there, Lucy Legal. And if you need some templates, go buy some, because then you can make them work. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to give us a like, some stars. Please leave a comment as well. That makes a big difference, just that other people can find it. And if you have enjoyed it, feel free to share with some of your friends. The more people we can get listening to this, the better. Have a good day.